Hello, welcome back to another Bye-Bye My Comics. It's been a while since I made a video for this series because I haven't sold anything that have great sentimental value. You know how this series is. Let's go with a little story first before I show the book. It's have been well documented on my channel that even though I collect way back in 1981, I didn't really spend a lot of money on back issues, not in those early years. I was too cheap and frugal to spend a lot of money, and even in 1990, when I was living in Boston, for the first time I spent 50 bucks on a book, X-Men 94. And up until that point, no Silver Age. There is no Silver Age books in my collection, okay? Browns and coppers, because I didn't spend much money on back issues. And even if I wanted to, for those that are familiar with Boston, I live right. I live in Brookline. I didn't live right in Boston. I live in a couple of the suburb or nearby area like Needham, Massachusetts, Newton, Massachusetts, Brighton, Massachusetts. And eventually I did end up in the north end of Boston, but for the most part, I work right downtown Boston. And really the only LCS that I go to on a weekly basis, if not every other week, was Newberry Comics. Right on Newberry Street, yeah. And if you know Newberry Comics, it's not a kind of place where you go to buy Silver Age back issues. So it was not really in my peripheral. I did go to a dozen conventions from 1989, late 1989 through 1991. But I just browsed through the Silver Age stuff. It was not even in my peripheral. And the way I was back then is if I'm not looking to buy something, I don't even waste my time looking at those things. You know, I talk about this in other videos where I would go to conventions and there would be booth dealers that would have original arts like Jack Kirby, Gene Colan, Silver Age original art for like $100, $200 a page. I walk right by it. If I'm not gonna buy it, I'm not gonna stop and look. That was my mental mindset. Not very bright yet back then, okay? So not until I returned to the hobby in late 1998 of the birth of eBay. Yeah, that was when A, I have money. B, I have access, easy access to Silver Age books. So right away, I was looking for Silver Age X-Men to buy, okay? And I can tell you, the very first book, I remember vividly the very first Silver Age X-Men that I bought. Not a key book on any sort. I was still very much a high-grade addict, junkie. So I remember looking at, if you know eBay, back in those early days, 1998, 1999, trust me, the pictures were pitiful. Nothing like it was today, okay? Back then it was pretty bad, okay? It was the wild, wild west as far as buying back issues on eBay. And I remember seeing this book and it looked so bright. You know me. Even for Silver Age, I prefer bright color, not yellow, dingy. And so this was the very first Silver Age X-Men that I bought. Not a key of any sort. I remember 20 bucks. Yeah, I paid 20 bucks. And on my very first batch to CGC, I submitted and got an 8.5. So I was glad that even back then I had a good eye. You know, it looked high grade. It's fairly white for one of those Silver Age books that, you know, could easily look yellowish. I remember seeing this book on the listing. I'm just like, man, that looked pretty sharp for a book that is like 30 years old or whatever it was back then. Yeah. So yeah, came out in 1966 and never been cleaned or pressed. I thought many times to crack it out, clean it, press it, and resubmit, but there are just enough flaws here that I said to myself, why bother? Yeah, so it can be a 9.0, but is it worth the hassle to resubmit to get a 9.0? All that, it's not going to change the value all that much, and the cost benefit not all that much, so I never resubmitted. But it's a beautiful book. Okay, so yeah, but it's time. Okay, I have slowly sold off my Silver Age X-Men run that I submit. My very first submission to CGC was 100 X-Men. Yeah, from issue 2 to not a complete run. Not a complete run. I had some low grade stuff that was not worth submitting, but from 2 to 143, 142, I did not have 143. To 142, I had a run that I thought was high grade, so I submitted and I got a lot of 8.5, 9.0, even a couple 9.8. But yeah, so that 100 books over the last 10 years, I had sold off probably, I would say maybe 90 or so. I still have about 10 left on the shelf, and this is one of them. But this is, I kept this around all this time because of sentimental value more than any other reason. It's just the very first Silver Age X-Men that I bought. The one I wanted, of course, as far as Silver Age X-Men was, of course, the Neil Adams issue. Okay, but it took me a little bit longer to find those books in high grade because I was picky. You know, if I was gonna pay more for those back issues, I want to be super high grade. So this was the very first one, and that's it for this episode of Bye Bye. It's time. I will put this in a video shortly with other slabs that I plan to sell, and then if it doesn't sell, then off to my comic shop it will go. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.